We are finally here, you guys. We are finally at the final things I didn't review, which I teased in a video I made recently. You can check it out right here. Sorry. As the title says, this is the final things I didn't review. I will explain it a little more in the video that I just tagged so you can watch a little more explanation of some of the changes I'm making to my channel. But in short, no pun intended, I'm going to start utilizing YouTube Shorts instead of compiling all my different reactions to these films and albums into one video. In a weird way, this is kind of good practice too, holding my phone like this. I'm going to be doing this a lot more. Well, not really actually. I'm kind of doing it the same amount of times that I've done it in the past, but I think you guys know what I mean. But as always, this is the tri-monthly video that I come out with where I recap all of the movies, albums, TV shows, you name it, that I did not do a formal, full-length, fledged out review for. Being a little more enthusiastic this time. It's the last one, you know. I'll be separating them into categories, just albums in one part of the video, just movies in one part of the video, etc. I have time codes in the description box below if you want to skip around to any other parts of the video. And I also have them ordered in their release dates, or by the release dates, I should say, if anyone was curious about that. And these are just my brief thoughts on all these things, not actual reviews. I'm not giving out any score. And each clip will be about 30 seconds to a minute on average, give or take some seconds. Some might be longer than a minute. Some might be shorter than 30 seconds too. And yeah, that's, I think, just about covers it. I'm not gonna do an outro clip like I normally do for these videos. I'm just gonna settle for this little message here that I'm giving to you guys. Thank you all for watching these videos, those of you that did. I know there are some people that did enjoy them, people that I personally know that actually gave me positive feedback on them as they would come out. So thank you guys a lot. You know who you are if you're watching this. At least I think you do. I really appreciate it. But yeah, it's kind of a new era for my channel utilizing YouTube Shorts. I'm excited, kind of nervous too to see how it goes. I literally have not even attempted to make a YouTube short before, so I don't really know how it works. I know there's obviously a time limit with it being shorts, they have to be short, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm kind of walking into it as a rookie, maybe? Anywho, like I said, that covers it. I don't want to get too repetitive here. That kind of sums up everything I wanted to say at the beginning of this video. And yeah, just thank you all again. As always, we're starting out with the albums. Here you go. Where the Flowers Don't Die by Mona Leo. Hope I'm saying that right. There is a good album in here somewhere. This project essentially has two sides to it in its brief runtime. We have the songs where she's rapping, kind of bragging, and having this sort of badassery attitude to her delivery. And then the other side that's kind of more focused on sensualness, embracing more of a R&B and soul genre. And I like that side quite a bit. I think that she's better. I think she's a pretty good singer. I really am not that impressed with her rapping, honestly, and I think that she should embrace the more soft side that she presents in this album, because I think there are some quality tracks here. But unfortunately, it does kind of go back and forth between those two personalities, and the end result for me was just kind of a mixed bag. In Times New Roman by Queens of the Stone Age, I was looking forward to this record. They are not really one of my favorite bands in the world, but I'm, for the most part, usually impressed whenever I do hear them with their production, with Josh's lyrics. And I think that there are some fantastic high moments on this album, some great choruses, just great songs that do appear on this record. But unfortunately, there are more, I would say more than the fantastic highs that it reaches, that are just boring and predictable and not doing anything that interesting with the production. And it turned out to be just a big mixed bag of an album for me that had some enjoyable moments, but had a lot of unfortunate lows, especially in the first half, that just made me want to go to sleep. A Gift and a Curse by Gunna. I'm not gonna lie when I say that this was a pretty generic and by the numbers emo rap album with a few surprisingly good bops on here that had me wondering, why isn't the rest of the album this good? Certain songs on here where I'm like, this is actually really good. Why can't the rest of the album live up to this quality? Because yeah, all the other songs on here just don't deliver. Gunna is on autopilot for almost all of this album. Pretty weak release in my opinion. Chemistry by Kelly Clarkson. There are a lot of empowering songs and anthems on this album, which is something that Kelly Clarkson has kind of become more so known for in, I don't know, the past decade or so with her singles and her albums. And look, I think she has a lot of talent. She's a great singer. I do have a lot of nostalgia for some of her older songs, but this I'm just really not into at all. I don't mind the subject matter. I think it's fine to talk about this kind of stuff and to try to motivate people, but I can't help but feel like there's a bit of disingenuousness to the presentation. It, just makes me not totally believe that she wants us to feel a certain way or to interpret the songs a certain way, if that makes any sense at all. Bottom line, I just didn't like this very much. I don't know. I sort of admire what Coi Leray is trying to do with an album like this, using a lot of these old pop samples, not the typical 60s, 70s soul R&B samples that we hear a lot, especially in the world of hip hop. But she uses lots of pop samples. Kind of reminds me of what Babytron does with a lot of his music. But to me, she just shows like little to no personality and charisma on the mic. And this album just gets really old quickly. You hear the first few songs and the rest of the album plays out pretty much how you think it's going to be. So, not for me. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the soundtrack, composed by John Williams. Supposedly his last film score. I've heard he is going to continue writing music, just not anymore for films, so this is his last one. And I think it's really good. I think it is a great swan song for him. I believe that's the right use of that terminology. I really like how he brought in older themes from the past Indiana Jones films. I mean, really all of them. I think all of the previous four parts of them were in here at some points, but he has some great new themes as well. Helena's theme is beautiful. Really pleased with the work that he's done here, and it pays tribute to his past work with the indie films, but has some new faces as well that are also very enjoyable. So I dug it. Pink Tape by Lil Uzi Vert's easily one of the biggest albums to come out this summer. I'm pretty sure it's going to be. It also went to #1, so that means we should be getting Love is Rage 3 pretty soon, which is cool. This was kind of a rough listen for about the first 60% of it, I would say. A little over halfway through, I was just not into this thing. But something happens about around the halfway mark where I honestly really enjoyed the rest of the album, and I was much more won over and won with the production and the different choices he was making, mixing different genres. Obviously rock, new metal is a part of this as well, but also still keeping true to his older style, as we do actually hear songs on here that are several years old, and that's something else I can get into about kind of the all over the place nature of this album with the sound of it. But overall, I actually didn't mind this too much. I don't know how often I would be revisiting it necessarily. It is definitely too long, but the good songs are good and are worth listening to, so it's actually kind of decent. Magic 2 by Nas. The first Magic kind of came out of nowhere at the end of 2021 and ended up being one of my favorite rap albums of that entire year. Funny enough, this was also, I think, the first reaction I recorded, like in this format of the Things I Didn't Review videos, so that's kind of cool. This is really good, once again. I would say it's on the level of Magic, if not even better. I can tell there was a little more effort put into this one, more time taken with the production. It does feel like a bigger budget, if you know what I mean. I do think it loses a little bit of steam towards the end. A couple songs, the second half, don't care for as much. And the soul feature on this album was pretty disappointing, to be honest. But just another great batch of songs from this guy. I love seeing him still pumping out such good quality music. The Ballad of Darren by Blur. This does feel very much like album that band makes after band doesn't have music out for almost 10 years. You know, it does have that kind of vibe to it. even without knowing how long it had been since they put out a project. But I would say this was a relatively pleasant listen, especially when you do consider just the drought in releases for them. I'm liking some of Damon's lyrics on this one. The band sounds nice. There's some surprisingly good experimentation, and especially the later tracks, even if they do feel a bit redundant, they were cool. It's a fine album, not really anything that impressive, but there are some good songs here. Mid-Air by Paris, Texas. I had the biggest smile on my face while listening to this thing. I didn't actually, but it was like a metaphorical smile. I loved this album so much. This is technically their first official studio album that they're putting out, and they knocked it out of the park here. I'm just loving the crossover of genres with this thing, because yeah, they're primarily a hip-hop duo, but there's a lot of rock mixed into this thing and some electronic tinge here and there that sounds quite nice. And just the performances from these guys are consistently great. The production is consistently fire throughout. Had a great time with this. A nice lean running time too, around 50 minutes, 16 songs. An efficient listen, in my opinion. Post Malone has finally gone completely down the pop rock singer-songwriter routes that he had been flirting with basically since the dawn of his career. He's full-fledged in this genre now, these several different genres. And I gotta say, I'm really not feeling it overall. I did like the singles. I liked the potential that the album seemed to have leading up to it. Recently became a father as well, Post Malone did. So I thought this could be a cool album. It could be a little mature, different from his recent stuff, his other albums. And it definitely is, but in my opinion, it's for the worse. I found a lot of the production here pretty underwhelming, and seemingly embracing the singer-songwriter style has led to Austin not penning very compelling tracks, in my opinion. Even his vocals at times are a little off here, so yeah, pretty disappointed with this. There are some good songs though. Sundial by No Name, pretty good album, nice short lean running time. I do wish there was a little more diversity with it though, musically and lyrically speaking. Also, No Name does tend to kind of stick to the same flow in a lot of these songs, and I wish she changed it up a little more. Also did not love some of the uses of auto-tune here. I liked when it had more of a raw aesthetic to it with her vocals and with the sound of the album in general. But there are plenty of nice instrumentals here, some good collaborations, and some good lyrics that I picked up on as well. Overall, pretty cool ride. Rocket Power sees the return of Quavo in solo form, a studio album by just Quavo himself. The title, of course, being an homage to his nephew, the late Takeoff. And certainly I think there are some great moments on here that do pay tribute to him. Some really good standout tracks that are about him, even involvement with Takeoff himself at parts of this album. But beyond that, I really did not get almost anything nearly as good out of it or as substantial out of it. It was really kind of bland and boring and basic, really kind of the triple B's there. Some good standout moments that relate to Takeoff, and most of that stuff I did enjoy on the record, but besides that, not really for me. The Long Goodbye by Candlebox. Until further notice, if there's any at all, this is going to be their last album they ever put out. And I don't really have a lot to say about it, to be honest. I didn't like it that much. I don't follow Candlebox that much. I know some of their hits from back in the day. So I don't know if this hits harder with Candlebox fans that have been listening to their music ever since they first kind of came onto the scene. I just don't have that experience with it. So maybe there's something I'm missing. There were some good songs, I will say that. It wasn't a terrible album. But as far as these last kind of swan song albums go, this is definitely not a favorite for me or really all that great. Back to the Water Below by Royal Blood, the rock duo. They're back with another album. Got a fair amount of enjoyment of their last one, probably one of my favorite rock records of 2021. And this one is okay. It's definitely a significant drop off, if you ask me, from their previous projects. It has some fire cuts. I think the performance is still great. The vocals are still strong and a highlight for me. And there is a little more versatility in this album than in previous works from Royal Blood, but I don't think it goes over that well or as well as I would have hoped it to. And it's weird. I almost feel like it's somewhat one-dimensional, even though they do try more things in this than previous albums. I don't know. There are some misses too, just in general. So it's a fine album. Guts, the newest, very highly anticipated album by Olivia Rodrigo, not only by the general public, but me, because I like Olivia quite a bit. I enjoyed Sour a lot. And yeah, I would say this is just about on par with it. Initially, I was thinking, I like Sour more. I definitely don't enjoy this as much, but thinking more about it, yeah, I would say it's kind of on that same level. Enjoying the songwriting. I do think there's a little more diversity here and some more maturing as well, which is great to see. And I like that she's showing signs of that. Olivia's singing on here is still really great. Enjoying quite a bit of instrumentals on here. In particular, the rock cuts I'm really enjoying a lot. There are a few misses though. Not every song works. Not all the songwriting is great. But when the album hits, it hits really hard. And yeah, another good project from Olivia. The new James Blake album is out. It's called Playing Robots into Heaven. And unfortunately, it is a very hit or miss album for me. There are essentially two sides to this record, two different phases to it that it kind of juggles between. One of which I've heard James Blake has been more adamant on focusing on making electronic dance music, basically all instrumental, not really utilizing vocals and songwriting as much. And there's the other side of the album that is more taking a ballad direction. And that side of the record, I was honestly a lot more into. The dance stuff wasn't all bad. Some of the cuts were okay, but I just wasn't as into it. I was a little more bored with it. The stuff when he's actually singing and writing lyrics and writing these compelling songs, I thought was really good. But unfortunately, there are more songs on here that aren't like that. And yeah, I just feel like the album could have been a lot better. As it is decent, but could have been better. The potential, I think, is really high with this one.
Tell me where to go when your heart ain't in it no more, and that's all I know.
Like, an EP by Ice Spice, her first official project, debut project, I guess. My message to Ice Spice, if you're watching this, is you thought I was feeling this EP? Nah, I'm not. Princess Diana goes hard, but besides that, nah, not really. Whoa, sorry. Flying High is a new EP by The Alchemist. It's pretty boring, to be honest. I think The Alchemist is a good producer. I've really liked work he's been involved with, songs he's produced. The guy definitely knows what he's doing, and he has a particular sound that is very recognizable. But this time around, I don't know, I just found it to be very sleepy. Like, I mean, seriously, like, just kind of was starting to get tired as I was listening to this, even with how short and brief it is. The features are okay in this, really nothing that's too standout though. And the production's fine. It's just not that interesting. I thought all the hoes had been scared off, but I guess there were more that had stuck around. This is a, I guess, sort of collection of songs that didn't make it onto the album Scaring the Hoes by JPEG Mafia and Danny Brown. Not really sure what it is, but it's a new EP. 4 tracks, 4 new songs from these guys. I'm assuming from when they were making the album. And it's really good. I really like, well, I'd say like 3 of these songs. One of them, the very last one, it's cool, but it does have this spoken word thing at the end that I don't really care for, so I can go without that one. But still a cool song, and still overall, this was a cool project, and I liked that it was a little more chill than the songs on Scaring the Host. You got a little bit of the wildness with the first and maybe the second song as well. But then there were some nice chill kind of slow jam vibes with this one too that I thought were good, and I thought Peggy and Danny did a great job rapping on here. Really enjoyed it. Childhood Eyes by Yellow Cards, the new EP by them. Been a while since they put something out, and man, this just felt like a blast from the past for me. A lot of these emo kinds of bands were big when I was a kid, when I was growing up, so hearing them collaborate with Pierce the Veil, Dashboard Confessional was wild hearing that. It's okay overall. There are a couple of good songs on here. It's not too bad considering it's a Yellow Card with a new project. It's better than you think it would be, but it's not anything that great, but short listen, so who cares? Blackbox Live Recorder 21F in a Room 7FS60. I don't entirely know the purpose of this EP, if it's leading towards a full-length album to come in the near future from Aphex Twin. Whatever it is, what we get here is honestly so-so in my opinion. There are some good grooves here and there. It sounds nice instrumentally. Richard's doing his thing on the production and it sounds cool. If you're an Aphex Twin fan, I guess check this out, but just don't expect to be too impressed with it, I would say. Tesla, a new EP by Lil Yachty. It's okay. It's only 4 songs long. I would say I enjoyed 2 of them quite a bit, and then the other 2 I didn't really like. So kind of a mixed bag, I guess. The good songs are good. The bad songs are bad, and I don't want to listen to them. Not really much else to say other than that. I was hoping it would go more towards the direction that Yachty was taking with Let's Start Here. And he kind of just seems to be going back to his usual musical tendencies, which isn't necessarily bad, but I was hoping for more evolution and experimentation. Maybe we'll get that in another full-length project coming up, but as it stands, this is just an okay little short project he put out, and yeah, it's fine.
Oh, the wonders a little class to do. Coming through the crib, you was passive like I was passing through.
A Love Letter to You 5 is the 5th installment in Trippie Redd's Love Letter series of projects, which in my opinion up to this point has not been that great, partially because of just the quality of the songs themselves. I will say though, I like how they have similar structures to all of them. Similar kinds of songs appear at similar points in each of the projects, so I like that there are connections between them. And I gotta say, this is actually easily my favorites of these projects. Not one I love in particular, definitely quite a bit of misses in my opinion, but some really big standouts. A great last leg of the tape as well that I think saves it from what probably wouldn't have been that great before that last leg. So I don't know if he's going to continue to make more, but I think this is actually a pretty proper and fitting ending if he were to just end it here. Pixar's newest film, Elemental. I think this does have a good amount of heart to it, and especially some endearing moments between the main 2 characters. But this is clearly not targeted towards people around my age. I'm an adult. This movie, unlike a lot of Pixar movies, is pretty much just for kids and targeted towards children. And I don't really see that many adults, people my age or even older, getting a whole lot of enjoyment out of this, honestly. The animation, though mostly pretty great, remind me of the Amazing World of Gumball at times. I would elaborate on that, but I don't want this reaction to be too long. This is definitely one of my least favorite Pixar movies, but overall, I didn't mind it. I was relatively entertained for most of it. I don't know if I'll ever go back to it though. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was incredibly hyped for this movie. Possibly my most anticipated movie of this year. The more that I think about it, was intrigued by how James Mangold would handle this franchise. Spielberg not directing, he's helmed direction this time around. And he does a pretty good job here overall. I was pretty satisfied with how his direction went. Harrison Ford is fantastic as always as this character. Great to see him still doing this great at this age, at this point in his life as the character. I liked the villains a good amount. I liked Phoebe Waller-Bridge a lot more than most people seem to be liking her. I thought she was great. Had some issues with her character, but the performance was awesome. There are some CGI visual effects that are quite noticeable though from time to time, and I'm very conflicted with the ending to the film. Not that I didn't like the actual thing that happens at the end. I do, but what could have happened, the kind of ending they were hinting at before, I think would have been a more powerful ending for Indiana as well, for the character. So I'm just a little conflicted there, but overall, pretty good time. I struggled initially to get into Sound of Freedom because of the presentation of the film. It felt like some sort of made-for-TV film. I don't know if anyone had that experience for like the first half of it, with the way it was shot, the way it would even transition between shots, and the general look of the movie. The editing was weird and off-putting to me at first, but about halfway through, it gets a lot more serious and becomes more of a drama. And I was really down with the direction that the movie went in. And also, I didn't know what it was about going into it, so that was a cool surprise too. And I think that there are some very strong performances here and a good message at the end as well. Yeah, just some really exciting, thrilling moments, and definitely something that's easier to get behind because of the messed up stuff that happens in this movie. You really are rooting for them to, come out on top. By a long shot, this is one of the best comedies I've seen all year, and honestly just one of the best movies, period. This thing was super funny from beginning to end, but it's not just constant jokes as well. There's actually heart to it, and I cared about the characters, and I understood what they were going through, and I sympathized with their situations. But yeah, in addition to that, it is also just super funny, super raunchy, so if you're not into that, you might not be as into this one, but very fast-paced, and a lot of the jokes land for me. I had a really good time with this. Yeah! That's about the extent of my stuntman talents, ability to do stunts. I don't know what you would call that. If you guys like action movies and you like movies with people doing their own stunts and seeing them put themselves in danger and seeing Tom Cruise run a bunch, this is your movie. The Mission Impossible movies seem to just be getting better as they keep going. I don't know how they do this. I do think this is a slight drop off from the last one, but it's phenomenal. I encourage you all to go see it. Honestly, even if you haven't seen the others, you could probably still get a lot of enjoyment out of this one because it's just great filmmaking and really interesting story too. Really interesting thing that they're going after, trying to achieve. And it's a part one as well, so there's still more to come. I think Haunted Mansion is a simple but fun movie, appropriately scary and creepy, kind of in a Halloween-ish way. Not like the movie Halloween, but the holiday Halloween. It's not too scary and frightening. It's kind of like a fun type of horror, kind of spooky-esque. Lakeith Stanfield absolutely carries this movie and carries the cast. The acting overall isn't that bad, but he's really great. He's actually almost a little too good, to be honest. It's a little much for this kind of Disney horror movie, horror used lightly, because it's also a comedy. It's lots of jokes here. And some of them do land for me, others don't. It's a fun movie overall. I was actually pretty entertained with it, didn't mind it. Gran Turismo, I think, turned out to be a pretty solid racing film. I have heard that it's not the most accurate depiction of the real story and is somewhat of a loose retelling of it, but to my knowledge, it seemed to pay enough homage and enough respect to the original story and not fabricate it too much. I love David Harbour in this film. In my opinion, he definitely gives the best performance here. And it is a feel-good story at the core, which is all I ask for these kinds of movies that are supposed to be uplifting and inspiring. And this, to me, does bring that feel-good nature to it, so I didn't mind it overall. The Hill is, first of all, incredibly boring title, but also based on a true story sports movie relating to baseball this time around. Kind of similar to Gran Turismo, which I'm thinking about because I also saw it recently. Very generic, very predictable sports movie. We've all seen this before. I would say this one is also really not that interesting from a technical aspect, other than some good shots and nice cinematography. but it hits you in the feels enough. It has some decent performances and a good contrast between, I think, the scenes with the younger actors and older actors, because there is quite a big time jump. And I think that's handled fairly well. And sure, it's uplifting. It does its job well. It's not mind-blowing. It is just okay in my opinion. There's way better sports movies out there, but it's not terrible. You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, the, I believe, newest Happy Madison production. And been hearing a lot of good things about it. I would say, yeah, it's pretty good in my opinion. Maybe a little overhyped, not as good as everyone is saying it is in my opinion. The acting is very good here. A lot of younger actors utilized, and I think they all do a great job. Sunny Sandler is definitely the star of the show, and I think she's really great here. It was a fairly engaging story with a good amount of heart to it as well. But, I didn't think it was all that funny. Really, I do think the comedy could have been better. And some of the drama amongst these kids was just whatever. I don't know if it's just because I'm older and have not reached an age yet where I can kind of relate to it. Thinking like I've grown old enough to kind of relate back to when I was that age. I don't know, kind of in a weird place there. In short, though, it's a pretty good movie. I'd actually recommend it. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. I like the first one a lot, actually. I think it's very good, very well made and well written rom-com, and I was not into the second one nearly as much. This one is a little bit in the middle to me between these two films in terms of the quality. I think it is a perfectly okay and light comedy. There are some really funny moments. I think that the performances are mostly pretty on points, but I'm really just not into the story that much here, and I don't feel as invested in the characters, and there just isn't as much depth in this one or in the second one as there was in the first one, in my opinion. So the writing has definitely taken a downhill direction, in my opinion. But it's fine. If you go for laughs and for some cute moments, I guess, some good family bonding moments, you might get a kick out of it. Season 2 of The Bad Batch, well, I don't personally feel like the camaraderie and chemistry amongst the main crew here is as well realized as it was in the first season. There are several other things I think this actually improves upon after the first season. I think that the villains are better. The antagonist-like characters are a little more intimidating in my opinion. And I also like some of the action scenes better. I think they're better homed here in this season. I still overall feel like this kind of pales in comparison to some of the other Star Wars shows, like the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian or the best seasons from the Clone Wars. Nowhere near as good as those, but still pretty solid. I think overall an improvement from the first season, and I look forward to what they'll come out with next. It leaves off on a pretty big cliffhanger. Secret Invasion, one of the more engaging Marvel shows as of late, I think, that they put out on the Disney Plus streaming service. I like the mystery aspect here. I think the acting is really great. I really do enjoy seeing more of Nick Fury and more behind the scenes stuff, a la his home life or learning about his marriage. I thought all of that was very interesting. The plot device that is the Skrulls here, I thought got old pretty quickly, because at a certain point it's like anyone can be a Skrull, and it becomes very predictable. It's like, yeah, I bet that person's a Skrull, and then they are. So that got old fairly fast for me. Overall, it was a pretty good show in my opinion. I will say though, I did not love the ending, though it was kind of a letdown for me. Miracle Workers has finished its 4th season, End Times, kind of a play on the Mad Max type of world, post-apocalypse kind of setting. And I think it works really well here. I think it's very funny, and I think it's a good satire of that type of society. And I'm liking the characters still and the performances quite a bit. But I do think at times it does get a little too campy for its own good. And I also think that the last couple of episodes do bring the season down quite a bit from how much I would have enjoyed it without those two or before those two. So unfortunately, kind of a bad ending, if you ask me, but really was down with a lot of the stuff leading up to it. And overall, it was still a good season.